Hi everyone, today I'm going to be presenting on the article titled Atomoxetine in Adults with ADHD, Two Randomized Placebo-Controlled Studies by Mitchelson et al. 2013. ADHD is a psychiatric disorder that is characterized by difficulties sustaining attention and difficulties with impulse control. ADHD is diagnosed early in life and has been studied primarily in children, amongst whom it is prevalent 3 to 7%. As children mature, symptoms can become less problematic, most likely because of developmental changes in the brain, by learning to compensate for their deficits with adaptive behaviors or by gravitating towards environments with fewer demands. By any means, the disorder still persists in adulthood and it can be problematic. Pharmaceuticals have been shown to be effective in children, but studies are limited on their effectiveness in adults. Most common drugs are Ritalin and Adderall, both of which are stimulants. An alternative to stimulants are antidepressants, like Wellbutrin. However, they have not been approved for use in children with ADHD or in adults with ADHD by the FDA. Atomoxetine is a selective norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, and it has several pros listed in this article, such as a little effect on other noradrenergic receptors and neurotransmitter transporters, effectiveness in children and teens with ADHD. Preliminary data suggests that its effectiveness in adults. It has been shown to be non-habit forming, and there are no adverse effects on the the cardiovascular system. So the purpose of this study was to assess the efficacy of atomoxetine in adults with ADHD. The participants of the study were adults who met the DSM criteria for ADHD. They had to have at least moderate severity of symptoms as reported by themselves in addition to someone else, so a second reporter. All the participants went through screenings, and those who had comorbid psychiatric disorders such as severe anxiety or depression were excluded from the study. Participants went through a 1-week medication washout, which meant that they didn't take their medications that they were previously on. The design of this study was 2 concurrent randomized double-blind studies. The measure used as the independent or the dependent variable was the Inattention and Hyperactivity Impulsivity Subscale, investigator-rated CAR. The procedure was after the 1-week washout, the participants were entered into a 2-week placebo condition to assure that the severity of their symptoms and to see if the symptoms would persist. After that, they were randomly placed into either the control or the treatment condition. The participants who did receive the treatment got it for 10 weeks. All the participants were given the measure or the Inattention and Hyperactivity Impulsivity Subscale before and after the experiment. The statistical analyses used in this study was a comparison between treatment groups using a repeated measure mixed module, last observation carried forward, and ANOVA and Fisher's exact test. Statistical significance was determined to be less than or equal to 0.005, not 0.05, sorry. Out of the 448 participants initially assessed in the study 1, 280 met the criteria, 140 were placed into the treatment group, and 139 were placed into the placebo group. In study 2, 388 participants were assessed, and 256 met the criteria. 129 were placed into the treatment group, and 127 were placed into the placebo group. The table shows that there was a statistically significant reduction in both inattentive and hyperactive and impulsivity symptoms. The scores on the attention and hyperactive impulsivity subscales also improved in the treatment group as compared to the placebo group. This is apparent in the p-value for the CARS inventory, which was 0.005, and the total ADHD score, which was 0.002. The authors mentioned some limitations to their study, which included the DSM criteria for ADHD required there to be a diagnosis by the age of 7. Thus, the authors suggested that recall bias could affect the reliability of the diagnosis. And as mentioned before, subjects with comorbid psychiatric disorders were excluded, and this is not necessarily representative of the population, since a lot of people that are diagnosed with ADHD have a comorbid psychiatric disorder. And another limitation that they mentioned was that the drug was only tested against a placebo, and it wasn't tested against other ADHD medications to see if it was more effective than other medications in the treatment of ADHD symptoms. Since the only statistical analyses they ran that we covered in class was the ANOVA, I'm going to talk a little bit about the disadvantages of using an ANOVA. So ANOVAs function on two assumptions, which are all population means for each data group are roughly equal, and all variance from each data group must be equal. And this isn't really real world applicable, and it's hard to have this in real life. So this could skew the data overall. That being said, it is a powerful statistical tool, and it did give us the degree of significance for this specific drug, and it showed to be effective. And that's all I got. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.